and we'll turn the time over to Teresa to share more introduction of herself and or go ahead and start presenting.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you or good afternoon. I'm sorry. I'm used to doing these in the morning. Good. I hope everybody has been having a wonderful day, and it's a beautiful day outside. I almost took my laptop outside to do this, but I was afraid I wouldn't have a good internet connection. So that's why I'm doing it inside. But it's a beautiful day, and I hope that you are all having an opportunity to enjoy the day. I'm going to add a little bit of what on to what Carla was saying. I do teach a 4s and 5s class at a nature-based preschool in Noblesville, Nature's Pointe Cooperative Preschool. Our outdoor classroom is a Nature Explorer certified classroom. And we do, as she mentioned, we do forest days as well. My class does a forest day once a week. We are currently operating a mostly in-person session. However, I do a once a week, weekly Zoom session with my class as well. And so I've become all too familiar with working with children via Zoom. So I hope that you'll find some of this. I know not everybody teaches preschool. So if you don't mind sharing in the chat what kind of setting that you're in, as well as, you know, what age group that you're hoping to, that you work primarily with, because this is a session geared mainly toward preschool age children, but I would say that what I'm hoping to share with you could be used for pretty much any age of child. So feel free to, take this information and use it the best way it works for you. I usually like to start out my Zoom sessions with the children with a good morning song, because normally when I do my Zooms with my class, I do it in the morning. So I am going to pull up my music, and I have to switch my sound, so you won't be able to hear me. You'll only be able to hear my music. And I encourage you guys to, I'm going to do the motions to the song just like I would with the children. And I hope that you'll find this song a fun little song that you could use with your children, depending on the age, obviously. Okay, can you hear me again? Okay. Oops. I didn't say I was perfect at Zoom. That's just a song that I use every class and every Zoom session that I do with the children. So we use that for every time we meet. So hopefully that will give you a little idea of how I like to engage the children right away. I want to go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint. And, oh, actually, no. I'm going to go ahead and read a story with you. I don't know if any of you have read this book before. It's a brand new book called Outside In. It's written by an author called Deborah Underwood, and Cindy Derby did the illustrations. I'm normally, when I do books with children via Zoom, I like to use various digital book apps that allow me to show the book directly on the screen so that I'm not having to hold it up and try to read it and then get it close enough so that they can see. Unfortunately, this is a new enough book that I'm not able to do that with, but this is an excellent book that just came out that I wanted to share with you today, because I think it really kind of speaks to what our topic is about today. Outside In. It has beautiful illustrations. Once we were part of outside, and outside was part of us. There was nothing between us. Now, sometimes, even when we're outside, we are inside. We forget outside is there. So outside reminds us. With flashes at the window and slow magic tricks. It sends the sunset and shadows inside to play. Outside sings to us with chirps and rustles and tap taps on the roof. It beckons with smells, sun-baked, fresh, and mysterious. Outside feeds us. Sun, rain, and seeds become warm bread and berries. Outside cuddles us in clothes once puffs of cotton. It holds us in wooden chairs once trees. We feel outside in the warm weight of our cats and the rough fur of our dogs. Outside shows us there is a time to rest and a time to start fresh. Outside steals inside, a spider seeking shelter, a box elder bug in the bath, and a tiny snail on kale. Even rivers come inside, cool water rushing, eager to return to the sea. I'm here, outside says. I miss you. Outside waits. And we answer. That's the end of Outside In. And I read that book because I felt like it was a great testament to this time where we're really, really during COVID, learning how to really appreciate nature a lot more with the children. And that's why even in my Zoom classes, I try to include nature, because we're obviously stuck inside for a little bit of time. So, and now I'm going to share my screen. And okay, I wanted to share with you that if you go on YouTube to this link, and the handouts should be available on Whova. If you download the handouts and go to this link, there is a video of the illustrator of this book showing how to illustrate like she did. She did some wonderful watercolor illustration of the trees. And so it's a great way you could get the children involved, especially older children. I think that would be a really good activity for kindergarten and up to be able to do, to illustrate like that author. So I'm going to give you some tips that I have, back in March, when our school went to only virtual, we kind of floundered because in our preschool, we're a nature-based preschool, 1, we're a play-based preschool, 2, and we're parent cooperative. So our parents are very involved, as Carla had mentioned. So we kind of floundered a little bit with what to do, how to operate a school when we couldn't be live in person. So we quickly had to switch to Zoom, as many of you probably did as well. And so I did a lot of online classes and just to try to learn a little bit more about how to make it a little more engaging for the children. My Zooms from March to May, when we were open, I think went really well for the children, but I don't think they were as engaging as they could have been. So I'm proud to say that now that we're back in session, our Zoom classes actually with my 4 and 5-year-olds can sometimes be as long as 30 to 45 minutes. Now, I don't encourage that, obviously, but my class is has been engaged the whole time. They often don't want to leave the Zoom call. So I do feel like we've come a long way. One of the tips I would recommend that you start with, is pay attention to who your audience is. Now, I know some of you may not be in settings where you know the specific children that you're going to be working with, but even knowing the ages of the children will help you, because obviously if you have preschool children, you're not going to be able to stay engaged online with them as long as you will older children. So I would say with 4 and 5-year-olds, the max would be 20 minutes or so. Again, depending upon how you set up your Zoom. So pay attention to who your audience is. That will help you a lot in knowing how to set up your session. And then have a routine. As I said, I always have the same routine, and my routine mirrors what I do with them at school. So we always start with a good morning song. I normally do some other songs and or a book. Then we do some activities, which might involve a game or some type of way to engage them in that way. Then we always end our session with the same goodbye song. Find a way to engage, grab their attention right away. I usually communicate with my parents ahead of time, and I say, okay, your children need to bring this, these things to their Zoom class. Sometimes I provide it for them the day before, but I might even say, okay, everybody comes to Zoom class today and wear your favorite hat. And then when they come on, they'll see me in my hat. And my class happens to be the panda hat class. And so that's why they're like, you're wearing a panda on your head. So find a way to kind of grab their attention right away. Another way would be to have like a magic bag, and you're like, what do you think's in my magic bag? And then kind of engage them in that way to kind of see what kind of thought, creativity they will come up with. And plan. Make sure you plan. And I always over plan. I always have more activities than I think we'll get through. And so that way, if one activity just doesn't seem to be engaging them enough, I have a quick fix. And that's true if you're live with children as well as online. I mean, that's just a thing that you should plan in your time, is to make sure that you have plan. And I always write it in the order that I plan to do it. I always stack everything that I have for the children that I'm going to do with the children all in order as well. Make it as active as possible. So I don't just usually, and like right now, I'm just kind of speaking at you. Usually in my Zoom sessions with children, there's a lot of give and take. So during that book, I might have had them doing some type of action. I might have had them, putting something on their head or something like that. So I'm trying to make it as active as possible. If I do a story that they're going to be just listening to, then my next activity would be something that would have them actively doing something with me. So I at least try to balance it out. Read your audience. Again, knowing whether or not you're keeping their attention is really important. As I see children starting to like drop off the call, then I'm like, okay, it's time for us to stop. Let's sing the goodbye song and be on our way, because I've lost them. Now, if I still have a good number of children engaged, that's okay. I don't really require the children to stay with me for any length of time. And then have a lot of energy that you bring to the equation. If you're just kind of like half reading the story and you're half engaged, then they're not going to be engaged. So as you can see, this spells prepare. So in other words, prepare for your class. I thought I would just kind of share some ideas that I have used to kind of help me determine exactly what I want to, how I want to plan my sessions. But part of that, like I said, is I always like to try to bring the outside in. And that can be done through books, through the props that you use, through the activities that you plan, or even just being outside. Maybe you just take it completely outside and you're outside in your backyard or at a park and you're engaging them in that way. If you're at a park, naturally, that seems logical. This is one of my Zoom sessions that I did with the children. We read the book, Not a Stick, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, by Antoinette Portis. And we started with our Good Morning song, which is the one I played with you. Then we had been in class doing the song, Brown Squirrel, Brown Squirrel. Some of you might know it as Gray Squirrel, but Gray Squirrel, Brown Squirrel, either one of them, either way you sing it is fine, but it's brown squirrel, swish your bushy tail. Brown squirrel, swish your bushy tail. Hold the nut between your toes, wrinkle up your little nose. Brown squirrel, swish your bushy tail. And this song obviously is meant for them to get up and to move and to do all the action. So I get them involved in that. And then we read the story. Then we read the story. And then I had them each bring a stick. And we played a little game called Not a Stick, where I would say, Owen, what are you doing with that stick? And he would say, it's not a stick, it's a horse. And I encourage them to act it out. Oftentimes they shout it out, but as we do the game a little more and more each time, he will then just act it out, and then we'll try to guess what he's doing. It's just a different version of like charades, isn't it? Isn't that the one where you act out something, and it's kind of like that. Today we did the same activity, only we used rocks. So I had each of them bring a special rock, because we kind of celebrated International Stonework Day, and this was one of the activity that we did. This is one of the activities that we did today on our call, is I had them each bring a rock, and I'm like, what are you doing with that rock? And I always start out, and like I said, okay, to ask me what I'm doing with my rocks. And they're like, what are you doing with your rocks? I'm like, they're not rocks, they're eyes. And so then they, it's again, giving that give and take. So we played a Not a Stick game, and then I brought in another story, and this is a story you might not be as familiar with. It's not a fantastic story, but it's a good story to get them involved. And it's called Six Sticks, and it's about two little mice, and they have popsicle sticks, and they create all kinds of things with popsicle sticks. And so what I did is I had the children bring 6 popsicle sticks to class, or to Zoom class, and then I had them create stuff with their popsicle sticks. And I have a magnet board, and I had my popsicle sticks that I attached to my magnet board, and I created something as kind of a, to get them started, and then they all created their own things and then shared with their group. And then I have them bring paint stirrers every time. And with our paint stirrers, we did the song, tap your sticks in the air with the 1, 2, 3, tap your sips on the floor with the 1, 2, 3. But it's a Hat Palmer song. And we did that, and then we did our goodbye song. So that is one sample of an online session that I did with children. That particular one, the Not a Stick activity I only have 11 children this year, and they kept wanting to play it. So we played it, like each child got multiple turns. So that session actually went about 30 minutes. And again, I don't encourage that usually with 4 and 5-year-olds, but they were really engaged. Another session we did is we had been learning about birds out on our natural play outside classroom. We have been having lots of birds visit. We had a whole gaggle of geese out in the fields that we observed from afar. The children wanted to chase them, but I'm like, oh, we better leave them alone. But we had observed them, and then we had a birds visiting our sunflowers. And so the children were really interested in birds. So we had been learning about birds. And this was a book that I had found, I don't know, garage sale, thrift store, I don't know. But it's a great little book called Bird Sounds. And what's awesome about this book is it gives you clues. It says, I show up in the spring with my reddish brown breast, and I like to pull worms from the ground. What bird am I? Does anybody have a guess? You can unmute yourself and share.
Robin.
All right, we're going to listen to the sound. Did you hear that? Let's see if she's right. And you pull the little sleeve, and yep, you were right. It's a robin. I read this book to the children. Good job. I read this. I don't usually say good job to children, but I say you got it. But this book is great because it has the bird calls in it, and the children, it's a little mystery, and the children really, really love it. We read this book in class, and then because they were so engaged with it and kept picking it back up, I decided to use it on my Zoom call again. And then I had each of them bring binoculars made out of toilet paper tubes that they had created on their own to our virtual class. And then we went on a virtual field trip where we went to a nature center where the lady taught us how to listen for bird calls and make them on our own. So the children were able to then make the sounds on their own, and they knew that a chickadee says chickadee bee bee and that kind of thing like that. And then we also then went out into the fields and watched for birds, and those were done through YouTube. I just found really good YouTube videos that went along with it, and we used that. And then after we did our field trip, we did Two Little Blackbirds and the song Woodpecker by Hat Palmer and Mother Gooney Bird, and we did our goodbye song. So as you can see, I really pulled in a lot of nature into our Zoom calls. Some other ideas that might help you virtually. These are actually pictures from my class, our outdoor classroom, some of the activities that we did. But you can go, even on a Zoom call, children love scavenger hunts. So go on a scavenger hunt. You can even have them go outside. You could ask them to go outside in their yard and have them find a leaf or a blade of grass, or see if they can find a flower. But they can do those scavenger hunts pretty much about anything. You could have them do a bird scavenger hunt as well. If you can do a game with children, the one game that I did with the children when I did 6 sticks is I found some graphics online of popsicle sticks, and I made like a little virtual counting game that on a PowerPoint that we did together. So I put the popsicle sticks up there in different formations, and I say, okay, how many sticks do I have? And they would all count them, and they'd holler out whatever they thought it was, and then we would count them. So, and the PowerPoint games, they love them. And it's a way that they can, again, interact and be actively involved in the learning. I have done it where I had little like I Spy game where we would have maybe a letter that we are kind of focusing on, although I don't really focus a lot on letters. But so like today we did one with letter B because there's a little boy in our class named Ben, and Ben is hiding on our PowerPoint along with lots of other things that start with letter B. And so they would call out different things that they found. So, and those games don't have to be PowerPoint. They could be a flannel board or a magnet board or a variety of different things that you can do that works over Zoom. Charades, or you could have them run off and do the scavenger hunt where you say, okay, go find something red, and they run off and find something and bring it back to share. Just having a Zoom session with the children where they bring Play-Doh and loose parts and they each create something and then share it. As they could do that while you're reading a story to them as well. Or guided or free drawing. When we did the bird activity on our second week Zoom call about birds, because we did birds for several weeks because they were really engaged with them. We learned how to draw a bird and through a guided drawing activity, which I don't do in class, but it works really well online with them. An art activity. When we were on lockdown, and I didn't do this via Zoom. You don't always have to do engage children virtually via Zoom. You could do it through a video that you send to them. My daughter and I gathered dandelions because we had them all over our yard, and we went out and gathered dandelions, and then we made a video about how they could make dandelion Play-Doh with their parents. I had never made dandelion Play-Doh, but it was really awesome, and it had a really cool nature color because the only color that we used was the dandelions, and it made this really nice yellow, brownish, greenish colored Play-Doh that was really cool. And then we just we gathered some loose parts naturey loose parts in our yard, and we kind of created a couple of little things with our Play-Doh. My daughter created some things and I created some things. And then I encouraged the children to do that at home and then take pictures and bring it back to share. And it was a really fun activity. It was a way to engage them even without, using Zoom. Show and tell. I don't do a lot of show and tell in my class, but on Zoom, it's they want to be able to show you something. And so I even showed them my cat. We did a show and tell your pet. So I showed them my cats and they could show their pets. But show and tell is another way to engage the children really well virtually. And music and movement is always a good bet online. Although I will say sometimes, like when I use my laptop, I have to switch speakers. So I don't like doing that because then you can lose the children. So I often, if I do something music, I use my desktop. So knowing what works, and I didn't know that was just a accident that happened. So it's really important to going back to that prepare outline that I said earlier. If I had not pre-recorded myself doing the activities, then I would not have realized that my sound wasn't working and that I had to switch. So it's really important to kind of test that out if you're going to use music, especially. And then any kind of STEM activities, encouraging, having them get blocks out, or better yet, nature items, loose parts. And then maybe you're reading a story about the three little pigs, and you have them recreate a bridge or a house, the three Billy Goats Gruff and have them see if they can build a bridge using their loose parts. And that, that kind of goes in with the building. And any science, even science activities are really good. Pretty much anything you do in class, you can do online with the children with some adaptations. So I encourage you to, think outside the box a little bit. Don't say, how can I do this virtually if I, rather than live. So I wanted to do this with you, kind of walk through some ideas. And this is the sharing part. You're going to have to unmute yourself and share. But I found another really good book that I like called, I'm going to stop sharing so I can show you the book better. This is a book called Raindrops Roll. I have not used this with my children, so I'm hoping you guys will give me lots of good ideas for it. But it is an awesome book, and it has the sky storm. Insects can fly a firefly below a leaf, a fly inside a pod. And it goes on and it talks about the rain. It shows rain, pictures of rain and leaves with raindrops on them. So if you read this book to the children, I'm not going to read the whole book for time's sake, but what are some activities that you can do to get the children actively engaged if you were going to do this book virtually? Any ideas?
Ooh, I would totally do make their own rain sticks with that, and then we'd play with the rain sticks. That would be so much fun.
Absolutely. You could actually send ideas about how to make rain sticks. You can make them with toilet paper tubes, and I believe, trying to remember what we used. We did it in a virtual class, but you could find them online. You can find the idea online, but having them make a virtual rain stick. Great idea.
Along with that, I remember like making rain, the sound of rain in day camps, back in the day. I don't know if everyone's still doing that now, but with the little bit and then the snap there and and you get everyone together and it makes that whole thing. And I noticed yesterday morning, we've got an aquaponics thing at my sister's house, and she's got aquaponics outside of the shed that we're staying in, and there were just all these little droplets of rain on the strawberry plants that were right there, and just hunting for those raindrops was really kind of neat. And then seeing the raindrops on a spider web is really neat. And so sometimes taking a spray bottle when you go out to see spider webs and just spraying those. Photographers do that trick sometimes so they can take better pictures of them and such too. So
love it.
Along with what Carla was saying, I would see if I could send home eyedroppers with kids, or like in the packet, and then go out and test leaves and see which way it rolls. Does it roll back into the tree? Because my kids are always at home, are fascinated with, the plants that the roll it away from them or down to their roots or down to their center.
Absolutely. And if they were not able to go out, you could actually have them find leaves and bring them in and do that same idea over a bowl. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, Carla was saying it's a great STEM connection. Yes, absolutely.
If you put your screen up, it may give us kind of some of those ideas of what we're thinking about too. Just because I know you had the whole lesson plan thing there.
I did.
And I mentioned in chat that author is from Indiana, from St. Joseph County.
Yeah.
So I love her book. She packs a whole lot of information in a little bit of text with great illustrations too.
Absolutely. And I didn't want to read the text for time's sake, but I do encourage you to look it up. I was not familiar with the book, and I don't remember where maybe it was your Inside Outside Michiana blog that I saw it, but I don't know where I found the book, and I ordered it, and I love it. Any ideas?
She has
of other
several
books?
really she has several books, and also I mentioned it in the chat, but and I wasn't part of the planning process on this, but she spoke to our kids, I think it was our second graders who were doing a poetry unit. She spoke to them via Skype, and I don't think she charged. She might have, but I don't think it was a lot of money if she did. So that's another great thing, because she might be able to come in virtually for you.
I would love that idea. That's a great idea. We're getting ready to, we adopted a cow, and we're going to do the same idea with a cow, where it's a farm, and I can send out the information. I think it's past the time that you can do it, but they do it with preschool all the way up, where you adopt a cow and then you're assigned to a particular farm, and you like send communication back and forth. But any way you can get the children involved in even a virtual visitor, I think that a virtual visitor would be an awesome idea. I love that. Any stories or other stories or songs that you can think of that would go along with that book if you wanted to do more than one? Or any games or activities?
So we have some things coming in the chat too. And so Joe Pounds, he mentioned asking the child to become the plant and stand outside on a rainy day, or even in the shower with the raincoats on and see where the rain rolls. In the summer, they could close their eyes and feel it roll down arms and legs. I will say that one summer when I was doing a lot of programs with like day camps and things like that, I added squirt bottles to my mud kitchen stuff. And I will tell you that squirt bottles became like the favorite thing. And they can see where water goes. And that's really some of those precursors to understanding like that soil water conservation things in my mind. I mentioned watercolor with rain and such too. So.
Yeah, for some reason when I'm sharing, I can't see the chat. So I'm sorry. Thank you, Carla.
So that's why I'm here.
Yay. Yeah, all those are really wonderful ideas. And this is a format that I use for my planning. So, and this is in your handout. So you're more than welcome to steal this. I probably stole it from somewhere else. That's the great thing about preschool. We're not afraid to steal ideas from others. Any questions that anybody has?
Feel free to type those in the Zoom chat or go ahead and unmute, and you can go ahead and ask those questions too. I know that I jotted several down as Teresa was going on, and I did put one in the chat already, and some people have shared some things about it. So like Teresa, you mentioned how your students had paint stirrers. And so I assume, and then Play-Doh and some things like that. I assume you provided some of those materials to those students in person or drop off or something like that. Did you have a little kit of materials that you have provided to your participants for some of the Zoom things?
Yeah, when we started back to school, and like I said, we're kind of doing a hybrid thing where we're in person and online a little bit, so that we only have one class in the building at any one time. So we're trying to keep our classes separately. So we decided that because of that, and we knew that we were going to do virtual and the potential that we could all go 100% virtual again at any time, we put together kits that every child enrolled received with loose parts, Play-Doh, crayons, markers, lots of different things that and paint stirrers were one of them. And you can get paint stirrers free usually, like through Lowe's and Home Depot and Menards and places like that. If you ask them, if you tell them you're with a preschool or a whatever kind of program that you're with, oftentimes they'll allow you to have a certain number. Now they're not going to give you a ton, but we went ahead and ordered them on Amazon, and they were super cheap. But we provided them with materials. when I do my weekly Zoom, sometimes the materials are not always in the kit. So I will send home those items. I do have a couple children who are virtual only. So I will either drop off at their house or arrange a drop off or pickup of those materials so that everybody has the materials that they need for those virtual. Great question.
And people are still brainstorming more about all the rain and water kinds of things. So experimenting with sounds of drips on different surfaces. Krista Daniels mentioned that. And I mentioned that we do sound gardens sometimes with water and containers. So just a variety of different glass and metal and plastic containers with all kinds of utensils, sticks and silicone basters and metal types of things to see how the water interacts with the container and the thing that you're making noise with. Krista also mentioned how many drops you can fit on a penny. And Heather asked about, could you explain the water activity more? And I'm not sure what you mean by that, Heather. So if you want to clarify, you're welcome to. And if you do have other questions, feel free to unmute and or put them in the chat. And while Heather's clarifying, I wondered about the apps that you're using to show the book on the screen instead of just turning through it. Are you using like Epic or something of that sort?
Yes, absolutely. And I actually included that in my resources. On this resource page are some of my favorite lesson planning books that I use. Celebrate Nature, Nature-Based Learning, Getting Little Feet Wet. I encourage you, if you have not done the Getting Little Feet Wet through Project Wet and the Growing Up Wild, or Project Wild, and the Project Learning Tree Training on Environmental Experiences for Early Childhood. Those are awesome workshops. I attended a session at McGregor Park right before COVID hit. So it was perfect timing. I got it to do it live. But I also went ahead and did a virtual of Project Wet again, because I enjoyed it so much live that I'm like, well, I'll do it virtual and see what I get from there. So these are some adult resources as well as some books and websites that I recommend. And then on my next slide, or on the next handout, is a list of children's books that I recommend. And then these are a lot of the virtual field trip and online book apps that I use. I use Hoopla Digital, which a lot of libraries use. So you could check the book out digitally through your library. Unfortunately, like I said, the books that I used today were new enough that they weren't available. Open Library has a lot of great books. A lot of those ones are older books, but it's a free, completely 100% free app that you can use. Books is a video version of books that is this is a fairly new app, but those are mostly videos. I don't tend to use that one online with children, but it's a great resource for you for, books that you might not be familiar with. Digital through Scholastic, that one there is a little cost involved in that one. And then Storyline Online, again, I think that one costs a little bit. And then Get Epic, Get Epic, it depends. If you're a teacher, I think you can get it free for a year. Anybody that's not a teacher, I'm not really sure what the cost is. But those are what I use for displaying the book. And usually you can display the book and then have a little picture, your picture to the side. I think it's always best that you use your own voice versus getting a story on. The Storyline Online are actors doing the book. And if you need practice learning on how to, put the right inflections in the right place, that would be a great place to get ideas. But as I tend to the children want to hear me usually. So I usually use myself in any story. You can use the app Loom as well, but I'm not as comfortable with that. I've played around with it a little bit. And I know that there are devices that you can get where you can display your book as you read it. I'm not really sure about that, so I didn't include that because I didn't have time to look up that device. And these are some of the websites that I use for my virtual field trips that we do.
Okay, I did also want to share that Taryn Hassler is sharing a session specifically on books, I think on Sunday morning. And so she's a school librarian, and she just shares like information about nature books like all the time. So I specifically sought her out for a session on that. So I know people are interested in that. Me too. And she's also started in the community, like the discussion area, a thread about books. So feel free to share your books there and all those kinds of things. I had another question too.
Carla, yes. Can I insert something there?
Yes,
this is
please.
Karen, by the way. I actually have added as part of my presentation, and whether you attend it or not, but you can go on to my handout when it's available. I have loomed about how to use Hoopla, Libby, and Epic, and how to find the brand new stuff, how to find the nature stuff. So that's going to be extra little looms that you can watch whenever you want. So
excellent.
Those will be there.
Thanks for sharing that. I love how that we can kind of all collaborate together through the chat and this and all this thing. Teresa asked if you could go back to the screen with the book ideas. Mm-hmm. And these are all, and that was my question, these are all in your handout too, these links and resources that you have at the end?
The books, the children's books or the adult books?
So you had several slides with a bunch of different resources. Mm-hmm. Are those all in the handouts? Or
yeah, every one of them are in the handout. Yeah. This is the adult resource, and then this is the children's resource.
And so Teresa, probably the children's books is what you kind of wanted to see. And so many things.
And I will tell you, this is just I had a hard time narrowing it down because I have so many children's books, and I have a lot of books, children's books related to nature. Since we are a nature-based preschool, I tend to make a lot of my activities and things around nature. So I have a lot of, and I've gotten a lot of those from Carla's website. So
thanks. I noticed it on your list of resources. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Yes. Glad that was exactly what Teresa wanted, but yeah, these are great books.
Good.
Okay. So if you do have more questions, Teresa is participating in the conference and such too, and in the conversations and all those kinds of things. So feel free to reach out and network. So can you tell us what town you're in as well, your program? Is it Noblesville or am I like off base?
It is Noblesville, Indiana. And we are housed in a church. Our preschool rents from a church, and they have very graciously allowed us to do a lot of the nature stuff outside with parameters.
Yeah, and we've had conversations about that, having those conversations with your board and the people, and they have parents that are involved in that as well. Another group from the co-op, because you're a regional co-op, and then you have individual spots where you're doing things, is going to present, I think on Sunday as well, about how they have moved outside for this season kind of thing, and some of those lessons learned and such. So that may be interesting. But one thing that I've really been impressed with is just the parent education and involvement that happens as part of the co-op that you all have. And so it has some different challenges, but also a lot of different opportunities to really impact the whole family instead of just the few hours there during preschool. So you all do some great things to reach parents and everybody as part of that. So, yeah.
Yes, we do. We don't have a lot of, we have moved almost 100% outside as well this year. And due to COVID, and we had a very rainy day on Thursday, and all of my children came with mud suits on. And most of them ended up in the huge puddle at the bottom. We have a hill behind our preschool, and in the bottom, it pools with water. And before I know it, most of the children are down inside the big pool of water. And I sent home many wet clothes on Thursday, but got no complaints from any of the parents. So yes, that is a huge part of what needs to happen. If you're in a preschool and you're a nature-based preschool, you need to do a lot of educating on appropriate attire. We've started the process on teaching them about layering and things like that as well.
And I like that, the setting the expectation of this is who we are and what we do. We just do this, and then educating about, you know, what needs to happen for layering or protection or whatever, and having extras on hand, and then also making sure that it's the right fit for the families that are choosing to attend, because it's not going to be for everybody. And thinking about, you know, what's going to happen if a parent comes and complains about the wet clothes or whatever it may be. So going back to the Zoom, I do wonder if you or anybody else wants to share, have you had any like embarrassing moments or snafus that you really learned from Zoom? And I'm sure you just kind of roll with it and keep moving. But from that perspective, and knowing that we all make mistakes, myself included, what have you learned through that process?
Yes, I've had them, and especially as we started, it is a new process for all of us. And just knowing how much to plan was part of my challenge, was like knowing the right amount of material to plan. I've had my pets walk through my screen. Fortunately, I have had children without clothing attend. And, you know, we had a lot of at beginning learning about, you know, talking, not all talking at one time. We struggled with, we didn't really want to keep using Zoom because of the cost to our school, because if we went beyond 40 minutes, which with children we wouldn't, but we use it as for parent education and lots of different reasons. So we were going to switch to a different app, but not having the mute all was just not an option for us. So, because when you're reading a story, unless it's a story that they're going to be fully engaged with, which most of the time ours are, we learned really quickly that mute all was going to be necessary. You can't have 5 children yelling, Miss Teresa, as you're trying to read a story. It just doesn't work.
Some features are worth the price. So.
Yes, and that's what we determined. It was worth our budget. Yeah. Actually, we actually had a parent who donated the cost of it to the school.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah,
that's
great.
The great thing about co-ops.
Yeah, and so I don't see any other questions. And I did want to say, I had shared earlier in the chat that that it doesn't have to be perfect. Like the things, that connection that we make with our participants is more important than it being exactly perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. And I think that's really important to just remember.
Well, and actually you're exactly right. And that was the key thing we learned right away. It's not about teaching the children anything. It really is about keeping that connection. Yes, they might get some ideas and they might learn some things through some of the activities that you do with them, but it really is more about that, keeping when we went to all virtual, it was more about just keeping that connection, that relationship going with the children and the adults, because we did Zooms with our parents as well. I did weekly Zooms with just my parents in my classroom, so they can just share their frustrations, their concerns, and things related to what was going on in their lives. And it was like a mini therapy session for all of us, really. But you know, truly, I feel like it, you know, a lot of people they don't want children on digital. Digital's all bad. And it just really, I say it really depends. You know, obviously you don't want preschool age children on digital devices a lot of time, but it's how much you engage the children in that process. And if you're keeping the activities that you do, engaging with them and helping keep it active for them, then it is going to have benefit. It's a positive side of digital with children. At least we have this outlet during this time.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we could maintain those relationships.
Yeah. Thank you. And that's important to consider. I know I'm starting some digital classes up in the winter again. And so it'll be interesting to that. I thought this was really timely. During your presentation, my kid's school called and said that they're virtual until November 24th or something like that. So, and I love
you might have heard some of my children slamming doors in the background. So that's just part of it. And everybody learns that's, I mean, I've had siblings walk in, you know, to different Zooms, and it's okay. I've actually, the awesome part of Zoom is it can be a family event, you know, and I do encourage the families to be near to help with muting and unmuting, because, and some of the children actually learn to do that on their own. But if they're not able to do it on their own, I always ask the parents to be near. So yeah, those are just part of what happens.
Yeah, one of my kids loves,
and it's okay.
The 8-year-old like loves using chat in Zoom, but that is one kind of concern. Like, not everyone has the same technology capabilities, and some people have been trying to do all of their school off of mom's cell phone or whatever, you know. And so just being aware of the dynamics of who you're serving and things like that, and trying to find alternate ways to connect if the digital is not going to work for that. I really loved how you had just real examples of how you did things, and just chock full of ideas and examples, and really good teaching and connecting with participants can be transmitted over technology too. And you've showed great examples of that. So,
yeah, speaking to that before we close out, Carla, you had you kind of alluded to everybody not having the same devices and things like that, and that's definitely a concern for all any schools that are using any kind of virtual. So I will say not all of my children attend my Zooms, and that's okay. I do provide the activities to them anyway. So I will often videotape my Zooms so that they can watch them later if they're not able to join us. I also do videos, YouTube video or Facebook videos for them as well, where I'll post some stories on Facebook. I use an app for called Seesaw that's free, and I'll engage them that way as well. So if they're not able to be at a live session, there's other ways that you can engage them virtually as well.
Yeah,
because I know.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because if they have older siblings, and in our case, a lot of them do that are doing virtual, they may not have the bandwidth power to have multiple devices going. And I tell them, no, don't worry about it. You know, watch it later, or here's some activities that you can do while your other children are, you know, engaged.
Yeah. So thanks. There was something with that. Oh, Facebook Live. So having a private group for the parents. I've seen that used successfully as well. And hey, we're going live at 5:30 every night and read a chapter of a book, and it's kind of been a nice way as a parent to connect with other parents in the classroom too. So that can be an option as well. Thank you so much, Teresa, for your preparation and time. And thank you to all the participants for doing everything. Teresa asked if you'd share your goodbye song, but let me share a couple little announcements first, if that's okay.
Yes.
So we do have the next session in this track is going to be about getting comfortable with risky play with yours truly. So we do have, you know, the new members session later tonight, the song contest, the keynote with David Sobel and things like that. And feel free to continue these conversations in the Whova app or the website. And let's see, thanks for joining us today. I did want to say, because many of us are accessing Zoom via the Whova app, it is limiting some of our accessibility to some of the Zoom features that we might use. So I will be sending out some links to some of the things where we want more interaction and be able to see everyone that's in the session, like for the song contest tonight and for the social hour tomorrow night. So I will be sending links to that through the announcements feature in Whova. So if you're finding that you want more accessibility and control over what you can do within Zoom, sign up for it. I mean, use that link that I'm going to share for that, as opposed to the one directly in the Whova app, if that makes sense. And I would say it mostly makes a difference for those sessions that have where you really need to see and interact with other people a little bit more than viewing the speaker, if that makes sense. So that will be coming out, and we're looking forward to your goodbye song.
I'll take it away then. I'll have to switch stereo.
Goodbye, goodbye, and touch the sky.